As they stood together in the garden where so many important conversations had taken place, they felt ready for whatever challenges and opportunities lay ahead. They had learned that true nobility came not from titles or ceremonies, but from the courage to serve others with genuine compassion and unwavering commitment. The future stretched before them, full of possibilities to make a difference in the world, while raising their children with love and purpose. Hand in hand, they walked back toward the house where their family waited, carrying with them the grace, wisdom, and hope that would guide them through all the years to come. The ceremony took place on a perfect October morning, with golden sunlight streaming through the ancient stained glass windows of Westminster Abbey. Kate stood beside William, her hand resting lightly on his arm, as they prepared to accept the expanded roles that would define the rest of their lives. The weight of history and tradition filled the sacred space, but so did hope and the promise of renewal. Their children sat in the front row, dressed in their finest clothes but still unmistakably themselves. Their youngest whispered questions to their siblings about the proceedings, while the older ones watched with solemn understanding of the significance of this moment. Kate caught their eyes and smiled, a private moment of connection that reminded her why all of this mattered. The ceremony itself was deeply moving, blending ancient traditions with personal touches that reflected William and Kate's values and vision. They had worked with palace officials to include elements that honored both their service and their authenticity. The music included pieces that had special meaning to their family, and the prayers spoke of service, compassion, and hope. Well, the moment came for them to formally accept their new responsibilities. Kate felt a profound sense of readiness. The journey that had brought them to this point, their courtship, marriage, parenthood, her illness and recovery, their growing commitment to meaningful service, had prepared them in ways no formal training could have achieved. I solemnly promise and swear to govern the people of this realm according to their respective laws and customs. William spoke the ancient words with deep conviction, his voice carrying across the abbey to reach not just those present, but the millions watching around the world. Kate's own pledges focused on her commitment to health, family welfare, and international cooperation. Her words were carefully chosen to reflect both tradition and her personal passion for making a difference in people's lives. As she spoke, she thought of all the individuals whose stories had touched her heart. The cancer patients, the worried families, the children who needed advocates. The congregation included representatives from the many organizations they had worked with over the years. Cancer researchers sat near environmental advocates, children's charity workers beside international development experts. The diversity of those gathered reflected the broad scope of William and Kate's interests and impact. After the formal ceremony, they moved to a reception where they could personally thank the people who had supported their work. Kate made sure to spend time with each group, remembering specific projects and partnerships. Her genuine interest in others' work continued to impress everyone who met her. "Your Majesty," said Dr. Sarah Collins, the oncologist who had overseen Kate's treatment years earlier, "seeing you here today, so healthy and strong and ready to serve on this larger stage, it's the best possible outcome we could have hoped for." Kate hugged the doctor warmly, remembering how Dr. Collins had been both a skilled physician and a source of comfort during the most frightening time of her life. "You helped save my life," she said simply. "Now I want to use that life to help save others." The reception continued late into the evening, filled with conversations about future projects and collaborations. William and Kate moved through the crowd together, sometimes separately greeting different groups but always aware of each other's presence. Their partnership had become so natural that they seemed to communicate without words. Their children handled the long day with remarkable grace, charming guests with their genuine curiosity about the work their parents did. They asked thoughtful questions about cancer research and environmental protection, showing that they understood their family's commitment to service wasn't just ceremonial, but deeply personal and meaningful. As the evening wound down, William and Kate found themselves alone for a few minutes on a balcony overlooking the Thames. The city sparkled below them. Millions of lights representing millions of lives they were now pledged to serve in their expanded capacity. The magnitude of the responsibility was both humbling and inspiring. I keep thinking about that first day at university, Kate said softly, leaning against the stone railing. When you dropped those books and I helped you pick them up, did you ever imagine we'd end up here? William smiled at the memory that had become such an important part of their story. I knew you were special that day, he replied honestly, but I couldn't have imagined the journey we'd take together, the challenges we'd face, the strength we'd find, the difference we'd be able to make. They stood in comfortable silence, both reflecting on the extraordinary path that had led them to this moment. Kate's illness had changed everything. Their priorities, their understanding of what mattered, their appreciation for each day they had together. In many ways, that difficult experience had prepared them better than any formal training for the responsibilities they now carried. Tomorrow, we start the real work, Kate said. Though there was no anxiety in her voice, only anticipation. They had spent months preparing for this transition, building teams, developing strategies, and deepening partnerships with organizations around the world. They were ready to begin this new chapter of service. The next morning brought their first official engagement in their expanded roles, a visit to a new cancer research facility that Kate had helped establish. The timing was perfect, allowing her to see firsthand how her advocacy work was creating tangible results. Young researchers showed her breakthrough treatments being developed, and she met patients participating in clinical trials that offered new hope. 3 years ago, I was a patient myself, Kate told the research team during her remarks. Today, I'm here as someone committed to ensuring that future patients have even better outcomes than I did. Your work isn't just about science. It's about giving families hope, giving children their parents back, giving everyone the chance for more tomorrows. Her words carried the authenticity that came from lived experience. The researchers responded to her genuine understanding of their work, and several mentioned afterward how her involvement had already helped them secure additional funding and support for their projects. William's first major initiative in his expanded role focused on bringing together world leaders for a climate summit with concrete action plans rather than just discussions. His passion for environmental protection had only grown stronger since becoming a father, driven by his determination to leave a healthy planet for his children and their generation. As weeks turned to months, they settled into their new rhythm of greater responsibility balanced with continued attention to family life. Their children remained their top priority, and they worked hard to maintain the stability and normalcy that had helped their family thrive through both good times and challenges. Kate's international health work expanded rapidly, creating partnerships with organizations on every continent. Her personal story continued to resonate with people around the world, but more importantly, her practical approach to solving problems was creating measurable improvements in cancer care and family support services. One particularly meaningful moment came during a video call with cancer patients in Australia. A young mother thanked Kate for sharing her story, explaining that it had given her courage to seek treatment despite her fears. Seeing you healthy and happy and doing such important work showed me that cancer doesn't have to be the end of the story, the woman said. It can be the beginning of a new chapter. These interactions reminded Kate daily why their work mattered. Every research grant funded, every support program established, every family helped represented real people whose lives could be changed for the better. The scope of their platform was enormous, but they never lost sight of the individual human beings they were trying to serve. Their marriage continued to be their anchor through all the changes and new pressures. They had learned during Kate's illness how to support each other through difficult times, and now they applied those same skills to managing increased public responsibilities. They talked through challenges, celebrated successes together, and never let external pressures interfere with their fundamental partnership. As their first year in expanded roles drew to a close, they reflected on what they had accomplished and what still lay ahead. The learning curve had been steep, but their preparation had served them well. More importantly, they had maintained their authenticity and their focus on making a real difference rather than just fulfilling ceremonial obligations. We've become the people we always had the potential to be, Kate observed during one of their evening walks through the garden that remained her sanctuary. The roses were dormant now, waiting for spring's return, but she could already envision the blooms that would come with warmer weather. William nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Their trials and triumphs had revealed strengths and capabilities they might never have discovered otherwise. Kate's recovery had shown them both the power of hope and determination. Their partnership had proven that authentic love could weather any storm and emerge even stronger. The letter arrived on a Thursday afternoon in late spring, delivered by special courier with the formal seal that indicated important palace business. William was in his study reviewing briefing papers when Kate knocked gently on the door, holding the envelope with an expression that immediately told him this was significant. "It's from His Majesty," she said quietly, using the formal address that indicated the seriousness of the communication. Charles had been king for several years now, and while their family relationship remained warm and supportive, official correspondence always carried weight that personal conversations could not. William opened the envelope carefully, scanning the handwritten letter with growing understanding. The king was planning to step back from some of his more demanding royal duties, and he wanted William and Kate to gradually assume greater responsibilities in preparation for their eventual roles. It wasn't an immediate change, but a thoughtful transition planned over several years. "He's being very considerate," Kate observed, reading over William's shoulder. "Giving us time to prepare the children and adjust our current commitments." Her practical mind was already working through the implications, what this would mean for their family life, their existing charitable work, and the increased public attention that would inevitably come. They spent the evening discussing the letter's contents, weighing their readiness for expanded roles against their desire to give their children as normal a childhood as possible. The experience of Kate's illness had taught them both the importance of family time and personal relationships, values they didn't want to sacrifice even for increased royal responsibilities. "I think we're ready," William finally said, watching Kate as she considered all the angles. "We've learned so much these past few years, about leadership, about service, about what really matters. If we're going to do this, now feels like the right time." Kate nodded slowly. "The children are old enough to understand what's happening, and we've built such strong foundations with our charitable work. Maybe this is how we can make an even bigger difference." Her voice carried the same thoughtful determination that had guided her through recovery and all their major decisions since. The next few months were filled with planning and preparation. They worked closely with palace officials to develop a transition timeline that would be smooth for both the public and their family. Kate's health advocacy work would expand to include international partnerships, while William's environmental initiatives would gain broader scope and greater resources. Their children handled the news with remarkable maturity. They asked thoughtful questions about what the changes would mean for their family, and seemed to understand instinctively that their parents' increased responsibilities were about helping more people. "Will we still have our family dinners?" was their youngest's primary concern, showing the wisdom of focusing on what truly mattered. As summer arrived, they began taking on additional engagements and meeting with organizations they would eventually patronize in expanded roles. Kate threw herself into learning about international health initiatives, while William deepened his knowledge of constitutional matters and state protocols. They approached the preparation with the same thoroughness they brought to everything else. One particularly meaningful moment came during a visit to the Children's Hospital, where Kate had made her first public appearance after recovery. The young patients they met remembered her from previous visits, and their excitement about seeing her again reminded both William and Kate why public service mattered so much. "You helped me when I was scared," a 10-year-old girl told Kate during the visit. "Now I want to help other kids who are scared too." The simple statement captured everything Kate hoped to achieve through her work, creating ripples of kindness and courage that spread far beyond any single interaction. Their relationship with the king remained strong throughout the transition planning. Charles made sure to include them in important decisions and sought their input on matters that would eventually become their responsibility. His guidance was invaluable, shaped by decades of experience and deep understanding of both the privileges and burdens of royal service. "The most important thing," he told them, during one planning session, "is to remain authentic to yourselves. The institution is strong enough to adapt to your unique strengths and perspectives. The people need leaders who are genuine, not perfect copies of those who came before. Kate found particular meaning in expanding her health advocacy work to include global initiatives. She began developing partnerships with international organizations working on cancer research and family support services. Her personal experience gave her credibility that opened doors and created opportunities for meaningful collaboration. William's environmental work also evolved during this period, taking on new dimensions as he prepared for greater leadership responsibilities. He began working more closely with world leaders on climate initiatives, using his platform to advocate for policies that would protect the planet for his children and future generations. Their family life required careful protection during this busy period. They established clear boundaries around family time, ensuring that increased public responsibilities didn't erode the close relationships they had worked so hard to build. Sunday family dinners remained sacred, as did bedtime stories and school events. The children adapted well to their parents' increased profile, showing remarkable poise during public appearances while maintaining their natural personalities in private. Kate and William worked hard to help them understand the difference between their public and private roles, emphasizing that being genuine and kind mattered more than being perfect. As autumn approached, they felt increasingly confident about their readiness for expanded roles. The past few years had tested them in ways they could never have imagined, but those challenges had also revealed strengths they didn't know they possessed. Kate's recovery had taught them about resilience, hope, and the power of community support. Their charitable work had evolved from fulfilling obligations to pursuing genuine passion projects that created measurable impact. They had learned to use their platform not just to raise awareness, but to create real change in people's lives. Most importantly, they had discovered that their greatest strength lay in working together as partners. One evening, as they reviewed the final transition plans, Kate reflected on how far they had come since those early days of marriage. "Do you remember when we worried about whether we'd be good enough for these roles?" she asked William. "Now I realize that questioning whether we're worthy is actually what makes us worthy." William smiled at her wisdom. "We've learned that leadership isn't about having all the answers," he replied. "It's about caring enough to keep learning and growing and never forgetting that we're here to serve others, not ourselves." Outside, the first leaves were beginning to turn, marking another season of change and growth. Like the trees in their beloved garden, they were ready to shed what no longer served them and embrace the new growth that lay ahead. 2 years after Kate's recovery, life had settled into a new rhythm filled with purpose and gratitude. Their children had grown taller and wiser, carrying with them the strength that comes from weathering storms together as a family. The garden Kate tended had flourished beyond her wildest dreams, becoming a sanctuary where she often went to think and plan for the future. On a crisp October morning, William found her there among the late-blooming roses, but something in her posture told him this wasn't her usual peaceful gardening session. Kate was sitting on the wooden bench they had installed during her recovery, holding a letter in her hands and staring out at the landscape with an expression he couldn't quite read. "What is it, love?" he asked, settling beside her on the bench. That had become their unofficial place for important conversations. The morning sun cast long shadows across the grass, and somewhere in the distance they could hear their children playing with characteristic energy and joy. Kate turned to him with eyes that held both sadness and determination. "It's from the Palace Communications Office," she said quietly. "They've been receiving inquiries about my health again. Apparently, some tabloids are suggesting that my cancer has returned." She paused, looking down at the letter. "They want to know how we'd like to respond." William felt his chest tighten with familiar protective anger. Even after all this time, even after Kate's complete recovery and return to full public duties, there were still those who couldn't let them live in peace. "But your last checkup was perfect," he said, taking her hand. "Dr. Matthews said you're healthier than ever." "I know," Kate replied with a small smile. "And I am. I feel wonderful, actually. But the rumors have already started spreading and people are worried. I've received dozens of concerned messages just this morning." She showed him her phone, filled with notifications from well-wishers around the world. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both processing the implications. Kate had worked so hard to rebuild her public role after recovery, taking on new patronages and developing innovative programs for health and wellness. The thought that unfounded rumors might undermine that work was frustrating beyond words. "What does your heart tell you to do?" William asked, using the question that had guided them through many difficult decisions over the years. He had learned that Kate's instincts about handling public situations were usually spot on, shaped by genuine care for others and clear thinking about long-term consequences. Kate was quiet for a long moment, watching a robin hop across the grass, in search of breakfast. "I think we need to address this directly," she finally said. "Not because we owe anyone an explanation about our private medical information, but because there are people out there who are genuinely worried. People who went through their own health scares and found hope in my recovery story." William nodded, understanding immediately. This wasn't about defending themselves against tabloid speculation. It was about serving the people who had supported them through difficult times and who deserved honest communication about the rumors affecting someone they cared about. Over the next few days, they crafted a response that was both clear and kind. Kate insisted on writing most of it herself, wanting her own voice to come through rather than formal palace language. She thanked people for their concern, confirmed that she was in excellent health, and gently reminded everyone that regular medical checkups were part of responsible health management for anyone who had faced cancer. The statement also included information about recognizing and responding to health misinformation, turning what could have been merely defensive into something genuinely helpful for the public. Kate had a gift for transforming challenges into opportunities to serve others, and this situation was no exception. When the statement was released, the response was overwhelmingly positive. Medical professionals praised Kate's balanced approach to addressing health rumors while promoting accurate information. Cancer survivors appreciated her continued openness about the ongoing process of recovery and monitoring. Even media outlets that had previously been critical acknowledged her graceful handling of a difficult situation, but the most meaningful responses came from ordinary people who had been following Kate's journey. A grandmother from Wales wrote about how Kate's courage had inspired her to get a suspicious lump checked, leading to early detection and successful treatment. A young father shared how Kate's approach to talking with children about serious illness had helped him explain his own health challenges to his kids. "This is why we do this," Kate told William as they read through the messages together one evening. "Not for the headlines or the photo opportunities, but for the chance to make a real difference in people's lives." Her voice carried the conviction that had drawn him to her all those years ago at university. The experience reinforced their commitment to authentic public service. They had learned that genuine leadership meant being vulnerable when appropriate, honest about struggles, and always focused on how their experiences could benefit others. Kate's health journey had taught them both that true strength came from facing challenges with grace rather than pretending difficulties didn't exist. As winter approached, they began planning new initiatives for the coming year. Kate wanted to expand her work with cancer research and family support services, while William was developing programs to help other couples navigate serious health challenges together. Their shared experience had given them unique insights into both the medical and emotional aspects of dealing with illness. Their children, now old enough to understand more about their mother's previous illness, often helped with these efforts, in small ways. They would draw pictures for hospital waiting rooms, help sort donations for cancer support organizations, and sometimes accompany their parents on visits to medical facilities. The family's commitment to service had become a natural part of their daily life. One evening, as they were having dinner together, their youngest asked why Mummy and Daddy spent so much time helping sick people. Kate exchanged a meaningful look with William before answering. "Because when I was sick, so many people helped us," she explained. "Now that I'm better, it's our turn to help others." The simple wisdom of her response struck William deeply. Their entire approach to public service had been transformed by the experience of receiving help when they needed it most. They had learned firsthand how much kindness and support could mean during difficult times, and now they were determined to provide that same comfort to others. As they prepared for bed that night, William reflected on how the latest media challenge had actually strengthened their resolve and clarified their mission. What had started as unwelcome speculation had become another opportunity to serve others and demonstrate the power of handling difficulties with grace and purpose. Outside their window, the garden lay dormant under the first frost of the season, but William knew that beneath the surface new growth was already beginning. Just like their marriage, their family, and their commitment to serving others, some of the most beautiful things required both seasons of challenge and seasons of rest before revealing their full potential. Spring arrived early that year, bringing with it a sense of renewal and possibility that seemed to mirror Kate's improving health. The daffodils she had planted before her diagnosis now bloomed in cheerful yellow clusters throughout their garden, as if nature itself was celebrating her progress. William found her there on a particularly beautiful morning, kneeling among the flowers with dirt on her hands and joy in her eyes. "I never thought I'd be so happy to get my hands dirty again," Kate said, looking up at him with a smile that seemed to light up the entire garden. The simple act of gardening, something she had always loved, felt like reclaiming a piece of herself that illness had temporarily taken away. The months of treatment were behind them now, marked by small victories and steady improvements. Kate's medical team had delivered the news they had all been hoping for. The treatment had been successful and her prognosis was excellent. The relief they felt was overwhelming, like stepping out of a dark room into brilliant sunshine. Their children had been the first to hear the good news, and their reaction had been pure joy. They had danced around the sitting room, asked if this meant Mummy could go on the planned family vacation, and immediately began planning welcome home celebrations for when she finished her last treatment. Their resilience throughout the difficult months had been remarkable, and now their happiness was infectious. Kate threw herself into recovery with the same determination she had shown during treatment. She worked with nutritionists to rebuild her strength, gradually resumed light exercise, and slowly began taking on selected public engagements. Each milestone felt like a victory worth celebrating, no matter how small it might seem to others. William watched her navigate this new phase with deep admiration. Kate approached her return to public life thoughtfully, choosing causes and events that felt meaningful rather than simply fulfilling obligations. Her first public appearance after treatment was at a children's cancer ward, where she spent hours talking with young patients and their families. "I wanted my first visit to be somewhere that really matters," she explained to William afterward. "These families are going through what we went through, and if seeing me can give them even a little hope, then it's worth it." Her ability to transform personal experience into service for others never ceased to amaze him. The public response to Kate's recovery was overwhelming. Letters continued to arrive daily from people sharing their own stories of illness and healing, thanking her for her openness and grace. Many wrote about how her courage had inspired them to face their own health challenges with greater determination. Kate read every letter she could, often spending evenings responding personally to those from children or people facing particularly difficult circumstances. "These people took time to write to me," she told William. "The least I can do is acknowledge their kindness." Her genuine care for others remained unchanged, perhaps even deepened by her own experience. As summer approached, they planned their first real family vacation in over a year. The children were excited about beaches and swimming, while William looked forward to uninterrupted time with Kate away from medical appointments and treatments. They chose a private location where they could simply be a family without the pressures of public attention. The vacation was everything they had hoped for and more. Kate's energy returned day by day as she played with the children on the beach, took long walks with William, and rediscovered the simple pleasures that illness had temporarily overshadowed. Watching her laugh as their youngest built sand castles, William felt a gratitude so deep it was almost overwhelming. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset over the ocean, Kate reflected on everything they had been through. "I never want to take moments like this for granted again," she said, leaning against William's shoulder. "This year taught me that every ordinary day is actually extraordinary." William nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. The months of uncertainty had changed their perspective on everything: their relationship, their priorities, their appreciation for simple joys. They had always known life was precious, but now they felt it in their bones. Upon returning home, Kate began developing new initiatives based on her experience. She worked with medical organizations to improve support for families dealing with cancer, focusing particularly on helping children understand and cope when a parent is ill. Her insights were invaluable because she had lived through the experience from both sides. She also partnered with research institutions to fund studies on the psychological impact of serious illness on families. Treatment is about more than just medical care, she explained during one planning meeting. It's about supporting everyone affected by the diagnosis. Her holistic approach impressed the medical professionals she worked with. William supported these new projects wholeheartedly, often accompanying Kate to meetings and events related to her health advocacy work. He had his own perspective on being a caregiver and family member during a medical crisis, and together they offered a comprehensive view of the challenges families face. Their marriage had emerged from the trial stronger than ever. They had learned to communicate more openly about fears and hopes, to support each other in new ways, and to find joy in moments they might previously have overlooked. The depth of their partnership was evident to everyone who knew them. As autumn arrived, Kate celebrated a significant milestone, 1 year since her diagnosis. Rather than dwelling on the difficulty of that time, she chose to mark the day by visiting the hospital where she had received treatment. She brought flowers for the nursing staff and spent time with current patients, sharing encouragement and hope. "A year ago I was so scared," she told one young mother whose husband was undergoing treatment. "But look at me now. Healing happens, hope is real, and you're stronger than you know." Her words carried the weight of lived experience, making them all the more powerful. The anniversary also prompted reflection on how the experience had changed their family. The children showed greater empathy and kindness, having learned that people they love can face difficult challenges. William had discovered new depths of devotion and strength within himself, and Kate had found that surviving hardship had somehow increased her capacity for joy. That evening, as they tucked their children into bed, Kate whispered a prayer of gratitude for recovery, for family, for second chances. Outside, the garden she tended showed signs of autumn's approach, but she knew that spring would come again, bringing with it new growth and endless possibilities. The news came on a Tuesday morning in March, delivered with the clinical precision that such announcements require. Kate sat in the private sitting room, sunlight streaming through the tall windows, when the doctor's words seemed to hang in the air like autumn leaves refusing to fall. The diagnosis was serious, the treatment would be challenging, and the road ahead uncertain. William had been in Scotland for official engagements when the call reached him. His aide noticed the way his face changed, how his composed expression crumbled for just a moment before he rebuilt it with visible effort. "I need to go home," was all he said, and within hours he was on a plane, leaving behind scheduled meetings and ceremonial duties without a second thought. Kate had always been the strong one in their relationship, the steady presence who kept everything balanced. Now, as she processed the medical information and treatment options, William watched her with a mixture of admiration and heartbreak. Even facing this enormous challenge, she was thinking about others, how to tell the children, what this would mean for their upcoming engagements, how to handle the inevitable media attention. "We don't have to tell anyone yet," William said, taking her hands in his. They were sitting together on the couch where they had shared so many quiet evenings, but everything felt different now. The future they had planned, the certainty they had taken for granted suddenly seemed fragile as spun glass. Kate shook her head gently. "The children need to know before anyone else. They'll sense something is different." Her wisdom about family always amazed him. Even in her own moment of fear and uncertainty, she was protecting their little ones from confusion and worry. The conversation with their children was perhaps the hardest thing either of them had ever done. They sat in the nursery, surrounded by toys and picture books, trying to explain grown-up concepts in words young hearts could understand. Kate's voice remained calm and reassuring, though William could see the effort it cost her. "Mummy needs to see special doctors who will help her feel better," she explained, gathering their youngest into her lap. "It might take some time, and sometimes I might feel tired, but I'm going to be okay." The children listened with the solemn attention they usually reserved for bedtime stories, asking innocent questions that broke their parents' hearts with their simplicity. William marveled at how Kate continued to put everyone else's needs before her own. When palace staff learned about her condition, she personally thanked each one who expressed concern and made sure they understood this wouldn't affect their positions or responsibilities. She worried about disappointing the charities that depended on her support and the communities that looked forward to her visits. The decision about public disclosure weighed heavily on both of them. They valued their privacy, but they also understood their public role meant people genuinely cared about their well-being. Kate insisted on crafting the announcement herself, wanting her own words to share the news rather than leaving it to palace communication staff. "I want people to know that I'm facing this with hope," she told William as she worked on the statement. "Maybe it will help someone else who's going through something similar." Even in her own struggle, she was thinking about how her experience might serve others. The morning the announcement was released, messages of support began pouring in from around the world. Fellow cancer patients, medical professionals, world leaders, and ordinary people touched by her grace sent letters, flowers, and prayers. Kate read as many as she could, often with tears in her eyes at the kindness of strangers. William became fiercely protective during this time, adjusting his schedule to be present for every medical appointment and treatment session. He learned about chemotherapy protocols and side effects, researched the best specialists, and made sure Kate had everything she needed for comfort and healing. His transformation from dutiful prince to devoted caregiver revealed new depths of his character. Their relationship deepened in ways neither had expected. Stripped of the formal obligations that usually structured their days, they rediscovered simple intimacies. William reading aloud during Kate's rest periods, Kate teaching him to prepare her favorite comfort foods, long conversations about hopes and fears they had never fully shared before. The treatment was challenging, with good days and difficult ones. On mornings when Kate felt energetic, they would take gentle walks in their private gardens, talking about future plans and dreams. On harder days, William would simply hold her hand while she slept, grateful for each peaceful moment. Kate's courage inspired everyone around them. She approached each treatment with determination, researched her condition thoroughly, and maintained her sense of humor even during the most difficult phases. When she lost her hair, she joked about finally having an excuse to try all the hats she had been given over the years. William found himself learning new ways to show love and support. He became expert at brewing the specific teas that helped with nausea, learned massage techniques to ease discomfort, and discovered that sometimes the most helpful thing was simply being present without trying to fix or change anything. Their children adapted with the resilience of youth, creating artwork to decorate Kate's recovery room and putting on little performances to make her smile. They seemed to understand instinctively when their mother needed gentle hugs and when she needed quiet rest. As weeks turned to months, the treatment began showing positive results. Kate's medical team expressed cautious optimism, and gradually, her strength began returning. The family started planning small outings and future activities, though always with the understanding that healing takes time and patience. Through it all, Kate maintained her grace and concern for others. She used her experience to advocate for better cancer support services and worked with medical charities to improve patient care. Her illness became another way to serve, transforming personal struggle into public benefit. William watched his wife navigate this challenge with the same dignity she brought to everything else, and his love for her grew even deeper. He had married a remarkable woman, but her courage in facing this trial revealed new dimensions of her character that left him in awe. The morning sun cast long shadows across the palace gardens as William stood by the window, watching Kate tend to the roses she had planted years ago. Her gentle hands moved with practiced care, trimming each stem with the precision of someone who understood that beauty required both nurturing and sacrifice. The sight of her there, bathed in golden light, made his chest tighten with an emotion he couldn't quite name. Kate had always been different from the others in their circle. While other women sought attention and glamour, she found joy in simple moments, reading to children at the local hospital, helping elderly neighbors with their gardens, or simply sitting quietly with William as they watched the sunset. Her authenticity had drawn him to her from their very first meeting at university, when she had helped him pick up scattered books after he'd stumbled in the hallway. "You don't have to be perfect all the time," she had said with a warm smile, handing him his economics textbook. Those words had stayed with him through years of royal obligations and public scrutiny. Kate had seen through the titles and expectations to find the man beneath, the one who sometimes doubted himself and worried about living up to his family's legacy. Their love story had unfolded slowly, built on shared laughter and quiet conversations. Kate never demanded grand gestures or expensive gifts. Instead, she treasured the handwritten notes he left in her textbooks, the way he remembered her favorite tea, and how he would call her late at night just to hear her voice. She understood the weight of his future responsibilities and never made him feel guilty for the constraints of royal life. As months turned to years, their bond deepened. Kate became his anchor in storms of media attention and family drama. When photographers followed her to work, she handled it with grace. When tabloids criticized her family's background, she held her head high. William watched her navigate these challenges with a strength that amazed him, never once complaining or asking him to choose between her and his duties. Their engagement had been a moment of pure joy. William had proposed during a quiet holiday in Kenya, using his mother's sapphire ring. Kate's tears of happiness mixed with his own as they held each other under the African stars. "I want to serve beside you," she had whispered, and he knew she meant it with every fiber of her being. The wedding preparations brought new pressures, but Kate approached them with her characteristic thoughtfulness. She insisted on including charitable elements in their celebration, asking guests to donate to causes close to their hearts instead of giving traditional gifts. She spent hours writing personal thank you notes and made sure every detail reflected their values rather than mere spectacle. On their wedding day, as Kate walked down the aisle in her elegant gown, William felt time stop. The woman approaching him was not just his beloved, but his partner in service. Her smile radiated confidence and love, and when she took his hand at the altar, he felt complete in a way he had never experienced before. Their early married life was filled with discovery and adjustment. Kate threw herself into her royal duties with enthusiasm, visiting schools, hospitals, and community centers. She had a natural ability to connect with people, remembering names and stories from previous visits. Children were especially drawn to her warmth, and elderly people appreciated her patience in listening to their concerns. William watched with pride as Kate developed her own causes and initiatives. Her work with early childhood development came from genuine passion, not obligation. She would spend hours researching and meeting with experts, determined to make a real difference. Her dedication reminded him why he had fallen in love with her compassionate heart. They supported each other through difficult times too. When William struggled with the demands of his military service and royal duties, Kate provided steady encouragement. When she felt overwhelmed by public attention, he offered comfort and protection. They had learned to be each other's safe harbor in the storms of public life. Their private moments were precious: quiet dinners at home, walks in the countryside, playing with their dog Lupo in the garden. Kate had a way of making their residence feel like a real home rather than just another royal property. She filled it with photographs of family and friends, books they both loved, and small personal touches that reflected their shared life. As they prepared for bed that evening, William reflected on how Kate had changed his understanding of duty and service. Through her example, he had learned that true nobility came not from titles or ceremonies, but from how one treated others. She had shown him that royal responsibility could be joyful when approached with genuine care for others. Kate brushed her hair at the dressing table, humming softly, a habit from childhood that still made him smile. In moments like these, away from cameras and crowds, she was simply the woman he loved. Yet even in private, her grace and kindness shone through every gesture and word. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, noticing his reflective mood in the mirror's reflection. "Just grateful," he replied honestly, "for this life we've built together." Kate turned to face him, her eyes sparkling with the same warmth he'd noticed that first day at university. We make a good team, don't we? William nodded, pulling her close. They did make a good team, in public service, in private life, and in the quiet moments like this when the world fell away and only their love remained. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, they would face them together, as they always had. Outside their window, the roses Kate had tended that morning released their fragrance into the night air, a sweet reminder of the care and patience required to nurture something beautiful in a world that could sometimes be harsh and demanding.